My name is Jeff, you're watching Rolling the Score, and today I have a really cool video. This is the first video game themed video that I've done, and I'm really excited for it. And so what I want to talk about today is a brand new emulation handheld that I received recently, and I just wanted to share some very first impressions and get a little bit of an inside look at what the handheld looks like. So that handheld is the Anbernic RG35XX SP. This is the second RG35XX that I own. You can see the other one here in front of me. This is a model that is, as you can tell, very much based off of the Game Boy Advance SP, which in my personal opinion is the greatest handheld of all time, considering all of the enhancements it brought to the table when it came out. You can even see here on my table, on my nice little thematic spread, that you have the original Game Boy Advance right next to the Game Boy Advance SP. Now with these two devices, not only were they both great, and I got this is actually my launch Game Boy Advance. This is a Game Boy Advance SP that I got from a garage sale later. I originally had the silver color, and but you'll notice the big difference between these two devices. There's a few things. Number one is that the SP added a rechargeable battery. It added a clamshell design that protected the screen, and it also added a lit screen. And I say lit versus backlit or front lit because it kind of depends on the version you bought. I think the first versions of it, don't quote me on this, but I think the first ones were front lit and then front lit, and later they were backlit. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. The point is, having a lit screen, a rechargeable battery, this ultra portable clamshell design, and because it was a Game Boy Advance, it played everything in the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy line. It was a pretty impressive device at the time. When I first saw this at my friend's during middle school at his house, I was like, I mean, I already had a Game Boy Advance, but I knew I needed to buy the SP version because it was way more convenient. So when Anbernic announced that they were making an RG35XX with the overall look and feel of the SP, I got very excited and I knew I had to get it right away. I believe it retails on their website for $64.99. It occasionally goes on sale, and you can also buy it from other stores online where you may find it even cheaper. But I want to just give a few first impressions of the device. A couple things that are worth mentioning are, number one, the size and form factor. It's obviously very much designed after the Game Boy Advance SP, but it is a little bit bigger. In fact, the thickness here, you'll notice, is quite a bit thicker than the Game Boy Advance SP. I'll kind of hold them up here. I don't know if you can, my blur is not going to help here, but I'll have better video here. The point is, the Anbernic is a bit thicker, and if I were to lay these on top of one another, you're going to notice that the Anbernic is also a bit wider and a bit taller. Now, it wouldn't be an emulation handheld if it didn't give you a few other enhancements that would help with playing things besides Game Boy Advance games. So you do have 4 shoulder buttons. You also have 4 face buttons on the front, which are obviously deviations from the original SP. Aside from that, the beauty of this device is, in my opinion, what you have up here in the front, and this is true of all the RG35XX models, because again, there's other versions that you can buy if you don't like this clamshell design. You have 2 micro SD slots in the front of the device. The reason why I say that that's the beauty of this device is because, well, let's put it this way. Any of these emulation handhelds that you might be interested in getting are a rabbit hole. That's what you're buying if you buy one of these. It's a big, giant rabbit hole, because the first SD card is going to be your operating system. Your second SD card, if you want to use one, is where you put the games. This gives you a lot of options for customization. There's a lot of different operating systems that you can install to a flash card or to an SD card and put in the slot, and it'll just automatically run and work. I am running what's called MUOS. I think it's MUOS. I think that's how you pronounce it. And but there's plenty of others, including Anbernic's own operating system that comes pre-installed when you buy it. But one thing to note is, if you are going to buy one of these, the SD card that comes in it notoriously in past models has been a pretty bad SD card in that it fails. So one of the things that you're going to want to think about doing if you end up picking up one of these is getting new SD cards that you can then use that won't be as faulty. So buy from trusted brands, if you will. But that leads me to, I'm not going to get into the operating systems or even really talking about pros and cons to them. The point is, it's a rabbit hole. It's a device for people who want to tinker. If you want to play a bunch of retro games, yes, you can do that too, and you can decide how much you want to tinker with the device. It doesn't have to be that much, but the point is, this is not necessarily a device that's going to be super easy to just open and start playing unless you're content with the SD card they give you. So I would recommend watching some videos and understanding the different operating systems available and understanding how the device even works with, getting from having the device itself to actually running an operating system and playing games. Again, the purpose of this video is not as much to go into that level of detail. It's instead to just simply show off the device a little bit and see if it piques your interest, because if it does, you're probably going to enjoy having it, and it's probably worth going down the rabbit hole. It is a fantastic little device that allows you to play all sorts of games, and I found myself playing it all the time. I do prefer this model to the original RG35XX, which you can see here. I bought this one to look more like my original Game Boy because the Game Boy, as you can see here, this is my original handheld from when I was a kid. I have a lot of nostalgia for the original Game Boy, so when I got kind of a more traditional style of emulation handheld, I wanted it to look and feel kind of like the original Game Boy, but I do like the SP design more. I think it's more comfortable in the hands, although that's a little bit subject to the size of your hands, and you may notice potentially cramping because, again, it's thicker than the original SP, which I appreciate, but it's still kind of small and square-like, which isn't the most ergonomic for your hands. But that's okay. At the end of the day, it's fairly comfortable, and I love the clickiness of the buttons. I found that the D-pad on this one, at least with the games that I've been playing so far, which are slower paced, games like Pokemon, I feel like the D-pad is more accurate than what I was getting on the original RG35XX, so I appreciate that. And it just feels like an overall a little bit more of a premium device. Again, it's just, this form factor is great. It feels solid built, and again, everything about it so far for me feels fantastic. So I love this device so far, and I'm excited to continue using it to see if I have any gripes. The only thing that I would really, again, urge you to consider is the fact that this is a tinkerer device. In fact, I've noticed I tried a couple different operating systems, and the battery life of the device varied quite a bit between them, which means even simple things like understanding how long the battery might last is dependent on the operating system you're using, the settings within that operating system, and that's on top of the basics like what games are you playing, how intensive are they, and what's the brightness of your backlit screen, right? All of those factors play in, and it can be kind of confusing. With that said, if you're willing to go down that rabbit hole, I think you'll find a lot that you like. The only other comment that I really wanted to leave before I end the video with my first impressions of this device is, as a gaming parent, there was a part of me that was wondering, is this a device that I could potentially get for my kids? And is it something that I could easily play? And I think the answer to that is a yes. It's obviously, again, the setup of the device, the operating system, the settings, getting it to look and feel the way you want it to. That's something that I would have to own, and that's okay. I'm okay with doing that. Once I hand it off with the games that I want my kid to have, I think they could probably get used to it. The operating system that I have on here is relatively intuitive, and as long as I show them how to get to the games, I think it would work fine, especially if I were to add like box art, which is something I don't have on there right now, but if I'm gonna add box art for all the games, it becomes even more intuitive. So I think that there's the possibility of it being sort of a fun device for younger kids. Maybe you don't wanna get a Nintendo Switch because it's too expensive or too big and bulky. This is an alternative that could work if you know the kind of games that you'll want to put on it for your kids. Just know that you're going to have to do the setup for it because it's not exactly simple to go from being out of the box to playing if you want to go into tinkering with the operating system. The other thing I would add to it is, even though the device does have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, I have not become familiar enough with it to know whether you can do any sort of multiplayer with these retro games. Out there online, you can Google it and try to figure it out. It seems like it's possible with the right operating system, the right core. You may be able to do some trading between Pokemon games or even battling. I have not been able to tinker with that. I only have one of the devices, so I can't really try that out and see how it would work. But if you do a little bit more of your own research, it's possible that if you had multiple of these devices in your family, you might be able to find a way to make that work. I think that there's a way to use the wireless multiplayer adapter from the Game Boy Advance on this using the Wi-Fi, like emulate it basically. But again, this is getting a little bit out of my territory. I'm pretty new to this. So just getting this up and running and playable is something that I'm just excited about at this point. So getting into some of the more complicated things, you know, I only mention it because, again, if you have multiple kids, you want to get one of these for each of your kids because it's relatively inexpensive. That's fine. I think they would enjoy it as long as you set it up properly. But multiplayer features may not be functionable, but multiplayer function, oh my gosh. If you have multiple kids, you know, it might be fun to get one of these for each of them, but multiplayer functions, I'm very much in the dark at this point. If I learn more, I'll try to share it. But at this point, for me, as a solo gaming device, I think it's a fantastic thing to have in my collection so that I can easily play when I'm on the go or traveling or just, you know, sitting on the couch with nothing else to do. It's a great way to revisit some of these old games. So thank you for watching. Once again, this is a very scatterbrained first impression of the Anbernic RG35XX SP. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll try to respond. So thank you very much for watching.